and welcome to Finding Your Mojo in a fireside chat with Hemant Rustagi, CEO of Wise Invest. Hemant, thanks a ton for joining in. Hemant, I once heard this statement that, don't be a philosopher or even for that matter, a teacher or an actor without being rich. Money is significant, and there have been very contrasting opinions on how important money is. What are your thoughts on that for the 20s and the 30-year-olds?
Well, Samina, having enough money, having financial independence is absolutely important for everyone. And I think whether you are young or whether you are, approaching a retirement or whether you're already retired, everyone needs money. So if one were to look at really what financial independence means, to me, it is, having adequate resources at every stage of your life. So basically, we all need to make sure that there is enough money for us with respect to whatever we want to do in life, because everything that you want to do in life is going to cost you money. So it's important to have money and have, adequate money.
Right. So, of course, whichever side of the fence you're sitting on, it's very obvious that you can't dismiss that money is important. But more critical than earning money or having truckloads of it is knowing how to manage it and to make it work for you. So let's start with what is the importance of financial independence? How relevant is financial freedom in today's day and age?
Well, like I said, to me, financial independence is to have adequate resources at every stage of your life. I think it's important to understand that there are three components to becoming financially independent. Okay, the first one is earning, the second one is investing, and third one is first one is earning, saving, and then investing. Now, the ranking of each one of these in this process of becoming financially independent depends on at what stage of your life you are. For example, if you are young, you have to follow exactly in the same way that you earn, you save, and you invest. Someone who's already retired has done the investing bit. Then obviously the objective is to earn and see if some part of it can be saved and plowed back into the portfolio. So as we can see, there are three important components. If you look at each one, okay, when you talk about earning, we all understand what earning is. We all do our best to earn as much as we can. The problem is when we earn well. When we earn well, many people think that, okay, I'm earning enough. Why do I need to save? Why do I need to invest? I'm going to grow in my career. Whatever I'm going to do in my life, there'll be enough money for me to do everything. So I'm going to be financially independent at every stage of my life, which is obviously not the right thing. You have to make sure that you save. Okay. Now to save, you have to be a frugal person. Now, when I'm talking about that, I'm not saying that you have to start living below your means. Okay. You have to be financially responsible, which means that don't buy things which you don't require. Say no to impulsive buying. Make sure that you start saving early. Make sure that you're saving enough. Now, the issue is how much is enough? Okay. If I give an example, if I spend 100% of my income, I'm left with nothing. So financial independence to me, it will remain a distant dream. If I save 25% of what I earn, it will take me 32 years, okay, to retire with the current lifestyle that I have. Okay, and if I save 50% of my income, it will take me around 17 years to get there. If I save 70% of my income, it will take me 8.5 years. So clearly, 70% is not going to be possible for everyone, but you need to understand that you need to learn how to save and save as much as possible. Then it comes to, if you look at saving, again, the issue is many people equate it with investment. They think that it's the same thing, which is not true. Saving and investment are two completely different aspects. Saving is what you keep aside. Investing is you put it to work. How do you put it to work? In a manner that your real rate of return, which is gross return minus taxation minus inflation, has to be positive. So, these are three important components which will ensure that you can get financial independence whenever you want to. But each one of them have to be really focused on.
Hemant, let's take this one at a time, right? Firstly, tell me, how does one go about quantifying the desired corpus that you need, say 20 years from now or 30 years from now, or for that matter, even 15 to 18 years from now? There is a function of inflation, which is very important to talk about. There's also a function of increased responsibility and increased spending as one goes along in their life cycle. So how do you arrive at that quantifiable desired corpus? And then, of course, we can work backward to what needs to be done to get there.
So, I think this is a very important aspect. See, by the time you get to the stage of retirement, okay, there are many stages which will come on the way. You're going to have some other goals. You'll have some short-term goals. You'll have some medium-term goals. Goals like you want to buy a house, children education, okay, any other commitment that you may have, and then comes the retirement. The problem is many a time we kind of ignore that, goal of retirement, thinking that there is sufficient time, enough time. Why do we worry about this? But the fact is that you need to plan for every goal. That's why we always recommend that you should follow a goal-based investment process, which clearly means that you define all your goals, assign a time horizon, and these are steps that everyone must take. Assign a time horizon to each one, and then, as you rightly mentioned, for your long-term goal, inflation has to be taken into account. And the reason is that we mostly focus on safety of capital, which obviously is important. But when you invest for the long run, especially when you're talking about a goal like retirement, inflation has to be taken into account. If you don't do that, you will see a wide gap between what you actually needed to accumulate and what you finally accumulate. So follow this process. Inflation, on an average, you can take around 7% in our country. See how much you require. So there is very simple calculation that, okay, your expenses are going to grow at 7%. Your income also is going to grow at a certain percentage. Keep that into account. Reach a corpus, and then work out, how do I get there?
Right.
To get there, obviously the most important part is what your asset allocation is going to be. And like I said, beating inflation, staying ahead of inflation is very, very important, which means that majority of the money that you put aside for your retirement goal has to be in an asset class like equity, because that's the only asset class which will help you beat inflation. So set a target, work out on an assumed rate of return. For example, if your retirement is, let's say, 15-20 years away, you can assume around 12% return, and then work out how much you need to invest. And you have to continue this process. There are going to be occasions where you'll feel whether I'm doing the right thing, because the markets is going to see lots of ups and downs. Continue your process. While it is important to assess how much you need, while it is also equally important to ensure that you have the right asset allocation in your portfolio, it's equally important to continue the discipline of investing throughout your defined time horizon. If you don't do that, it'll be very, very difficult to get there.
Right, fair point. I think then you can service to yourself. But you mentioned you should live frugal. You should sort of live conservatively. I think that's the right word to use here. But this generation is all about aspirational living, and tech has made everything so close by and so accessible, and so has credit cards. Those are two other extreme ends of the spectrum, right? How does one draw the wedge between aspirational living, taking on debt, credit cards, all through your life, you will take on liabilities to buy a car, buy a home. How does one do that balancing act? Because liabilities and loans are the first thing you want to get rid of as quickly as you can, right?
Obviously, again, it depends on at what stage of your life you are. If you're someone who is just starting your career, obviously you wait for so many years to get to a stage when you start earning. So the first thing you want to do is really enjoy the money that you're earning. And you're saying like, I have so much time for retirement, why should I worry about this? But the fact is, if you plan your investment well, you can do everything that you want. Okay, like I said earlier, being frugal doesn't mean that living below your means. It's basically being a little sensible. So if you plan your investment, start investing early, you will get the benefit of compounding. Even with the smaller sum of money that you continue to invest, you can actually build a large corpus. You can still enjoy your life. Get into certain habits like budgeting, for example. Okay, budgeting really helps you a lot. There's a saying that you should first save and then spend. You need to pick up these habits at the early stage of your career. If you don't do that, then you get into phases where there can be a debt trap. Okay, there is going to be a gap between what you needed to accumulate and what you're able to accumulate. So I think it's very important to get into these habits right at the start of your career. And I believe that if you follow the discipline, if you plan your investment well, you can enjoy the money the way you want it, and you can also put money aside for your future requirement. It's very important not to get into a debt trap. I totally agree with you there. And many youngsters do that because obviously they want to buy a new phone every 6 months or 1 year. And these are like costly things to buy. And then suddenly you feel that there is not enough money to save and to invest. So like I said, if you plan your investment well, if you follow an investment plan, everything is possible. And only thing is you need to obviously understand that any compromise that you make today is going to be very costly for you and for your financial future. So every single penny that you're spending extra, which means that you have to compromise in your financial future. I think it's important for everyone to understand.
Right. You mentioned that different things, and I think that's a very important point, because one of the key areas of financial independence, financial planning, is creating an emergency fund. How would you invest that corpus which goes towards emergency fund? Because I'm assuming that's more like a saving. And of course, under investments, what are the sort of investment vehicles one can actually start looking at? Do you recommend that controlling expenses is one thing, but actually going out and increasing or adding sources of income could be another sort of way to get to your goal quicker than otherwise?
Well, I think I would say that, when we talk about emergency fund actually is a part of your risk management. Okay, so there are two parts to this. The first one is you have to make sure that any risk to your life, health, assets is taken care of. How do you do that? You do it through insurance. You buy life insurance, you buy health insurance, and you insure all your assets that you have. Now, it's equally important there to have adequate insurance as well as to make sure that you're buying the right product. The second part of risk management is creating an emergency fund. Now, there are two aspects again. How much should be there in the emergency fund? It should be, thumb rule is say around 6 months of your monthly expenses. When I'm talking about monthly expenses, I'm not talking about only household expenses. I'm talking about every financial commitment that you have, which has to be paid on a monthly basis. It could be your EMI, could be your children fee, or anything. Everything has to be calculated. Figure out how much you need to accumulate. And second aspect is that it should be invested in a manner that is easily available. It should be invested in liquid asset, which can be, you can put money in a bank, or there are options offered by mutual fund like liquid fund or ultra short-term fund. Okay, and the reason why also I believe that creating an emergency fund is important. The one other thing which can actually create issues for you financially in future, apart from your mindset, is not having an emergency fund. See what happens in the pandemic. We saw that a lot of people face financial difficulties. So if there is no emergency fund, so what you did, basically you kind of stop your long-term investment, you compromise in everything that you were doing the way you had planned. So it's important to create an emergency fund, make sure that it's adequate, and make sure it's invested in a manner that is easily accessible whenever you need it.
Even also, I believe proper actually help you save a lot of money, but due to lack of awareness or by procrastinating tax filing till the last minute, I think lots of people are not able to fully take advantage of the exemption limits and make ultimately land up paying more tax. How important is tax planning in the bigger scheme of things?
Samira, is absolutely a very, very important aspect. The problem with a lot of investors is that they keep tax planning separate from their investment portfolio. The important thing is to make tax planning a part of your investment portfolio, which means that tax saving investment can create a big role in achieving your goals. For example, if you need to save taxes and you invest in an option like equity linked savings scheme, which is an equity oriented fund, and you're also creating a corpus for your retirement fund through an equity fund, this can be aligned to that goal. Okay. The second aspect is it helps you understand which option should be choosing. The problem is most people wait till the fag end of the year, and whatever comes their way, they start investing there. I have seen people who have so many number of insurance policy, because every year they end up buying a new insurance policy. They don't plan, or everything goes into let's say public provident fund. I'm talking about the self-employed people who are employed. Obviously, the money goes into EPF. I think it's important to make tax planning a part of your overall investment plan. It will help you bringing in discipline into that. Second is it will help you decide which option to choose, and it will also help you align these investments to some of your goals. So you can see that over a period of time, they can play a significant role in your wealth creation. Second aspect is it's important to understand what are the tax implications of the investment that you're making. So one is saving tax at the time of making investment. Second part is which investment are you opting for? Is it tax efficient or not?
Right.
Because you may have planned well, you may have done your asset allocation well. Thing is, if you've not chosen investment which are giving you tax efficient return, it will eat into what you get to keep at the end of your time horizon. So I think it's equally important to understand both the aspects.
Right.
and then make decisions.
Right. Hemant, they're completely out of time, but one quick one I want to slip in before we have to end this conversation. What is the advice for somebody who's got a moderate risk appetite? What sort of asset allocation would you be advising him towards between equity and debt for a 10 to 20 year sort of financial independence or retirement age?
So, the best thing today is when you're looking at an option like, for example, if you're looking at mutual funds, they offer you product for every time horizon, they offer you product for every risk profile. So if you're looking at someone who can take moderate risk, there are a number of hybrid funds which are available.
Right.
And there are not only where you're in control of asset allocation, but also the returns are tax efficient. Now, for example, there are equity saving funds which invest around 20% in equity, the rest is in arbitrage and debt. And then there are balance advantage fund, which are dynamic asset allocation fund, which invest around 40-45% in equity, the balance in arbitrage and debt. There are equity-oriented hybrid funds which are there. And the reason why I'm saying that you should choose hybrid fund for someone who has a moderate risk profile is that while you have an option of investing in equity and debt separately, right, rebalancing the portfolio becomes very difficult because you don't know when to reduce and when to take it up. The fund manager will do that for you. And also it becomes more tax efficient because the fund manager is rebalancing the asset allocation. You're not doing it. So unless and until you do any transaction, you're not able to pay any tax.
Right.
So I think from the tax efficiency point of view, from the point of view of having control of the asset allocation, I think these hybrid funds can be the best option. And like I said, there are funds with different level of allocation to 3 asset classes. So you can choose depending on what kind of risk profile you have.
A lot of passive investors whose time horizon is 5 to 10 years. Hybrid funds might be a great option because, of course, more importantly, it also keeps you away from the pain of making those changes and actively tracking asset classes. But great talking to you as always, Hemant. You have a good weekend and we'll speak soon.